Hi guys, and thanks for joining me today. If you're new here, I'm Marilyn, and if you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. Now, today's an exciting day for me because I'm releasing 4 videos. In each of the 4 videos, I'm going to use Embrilliance software to design this type of cute and trendy knockout design. So why 4 different videos? In part 1, I'm going to show you how you can make this using Stitch Artist Level 1. In part 2, I'm going to show you how you can use Stitch Artist Level 2 as well as Silhouette Studio Business Edition to make this. In Level 3, and I think Level 3 is the most efficient way to make it, but not everybody has Stitch Artist Level 3. That's what part 3 is about. And then in part 4, I go back to Stitch Artist Level 1, but if you also have Enthusiast, there's a feature in there that makes this with Stitch Artist Level 1 much easier. So in the video you're watching right now, I'm going to use Stitch Artist Level 1. I'm in Embrilliance software, and for this part 1 of my Knockout series videos, I'm going to show you how you can make a knockout design using just Stitch Artist Level 1. Now my screen might look different than yours because I do have other parts of Embrilliance, but I'm not going to use any of those other modules in this video. I'm going to do this with features that you have in Stitch Artist Level 1. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go up to the Create icon. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go right over here to the icon where you can add true type art. Now that means that you can use fonts that are on your system, fonts that you just type with. So let's click on that, and then I want to go ahead and change this to University. And I believe that I got this font off of Creative Fabrica. So we'll click on University, and then I'm just going to type a capital H. And then I'll say OK. Now the first part of this is to get this H to the size that you want it to be in the end. Now once you add stitches to it, it's going to expand just a little bit. But if you want a design that's approximately 6 inches tall, you'll go ahead and put this at 6 inches tall. The next thing that I want to do is type out a word. I'm going to use a BX font for this. If you wanted to, you could go back to the true type font. You could type the word that you want in the font that you want, but then you'd have to digitize that. I'm going to go ahead and use a BX font. So I'll click right here on the A, and then let me go down here and pick the one I want, and it's this Bauhaus. And I'm going to type the word hope. Now this font came with Embrilliance, and you can see right now it's 1,527 stitches, and it's 2.5 inches wide. If I drag this to make it larger, watch what happens to those stitches. Instead of being 1,527, now it's 2,546. So when you expand that, it generates new stitches. All right, let's go ahead and turn it. While it's selected, if you click on this button, it turns like that. And that's the way I like mine to be turned. Now I think that's a little bit big. Let's make it a little smaller. If you want it to fit between here and here, you can make it even smaller. And I think I am going to make mine just a little bit smaller. I think I do want it to fit inside there. Okay. Now eventually this H is going to have satin border stitches around it. And I like to use a wide satin border stitch. So sometimes you'll get a letter, especially in the script fonts. So let's say a Y that comes way down in here. That's something you have to consider. You can always move your word up. You can always move that Y up a little bit. But it is something you have to consider to make sure that you have enough space in here to have your satin border stitch go all the way around the H. And then eventually we'll have a satin border that actually cuts into the H. That's that knockout effect. All right, let's go ahead and get this where we want it. And I want to make sure that there's nothing else that I want to change. I want to make sure I don't need to space out letters or anything like that. And I actually think this looks pretty good. I'm going to go a tiny bit smaller. and move it exactly where I want it, which is really just a matter of personal preference. So the next step is to draw with points. You're going to go around your H, all the way around, and then you're going to draw around the word hope. And that's how you get that knockout effect. So let's click on Create Designs. Right now, my points are defaulted to a curve point. I'm going to go around the H first, and everything on it is straight. So for now, I'll go ahead and click right here, and that's going to make it where it defaults to straight lines. If you leave it on curves, you can still get a straight line, at least on a Mac. You do that by holding down the Command button. I'll show you that here in just a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and get where we can draw with points. You click right here, and you can see it shows up Draw with Points. So I'll click there, and then I'm going to come right over here, and I think I'll start right there. I'm just going to click around this on that line, trying to stay on that line as much as possible, but we can always fix those points. And the fact that these are all straight lines makes this really easy. All right, I'm just going to click around, and I'll speed this up a little bit in the video, and then we'll pick back up when I get around to the hope. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to draw around hope with points. So I'm going to go ahead and go up here and change the default from straight lines to curved lines. And I'm just going to kind of somewhat quickly click around this. And the way you do this really is kind of up to you. Some people like it with more lumps and bumps. Some people like it more straight across. Now for this one, I'm going to use what is called a cusp. Right now, you see that circle is open. If I hold the Shift key down and I slightly move my little crosshairs, you see that line through it? That means it's a cusp. So if you're new to drawing with points, I have a video that I just released within the last couple of days, so I'll put a link to it in the video description below. I go through the various types of points you can draw with, when you would use each, and how you can change them in the middle of a drawing. But right now, this is a cusp. Now I'm going to go back to just drawing with curves. I'm going to put a cusp right here. We're going back to doing some curves. Let's put a cusp here. And then I'm going to hold down the Command because I want this to be a straight one. Then we're going to use some more curves. And we're almost done. I can finish this up by clicking right here. This closes your outline. Okay, so the next thing that I like to do is I like to go ahead and put a satin border on this, just so I see, am I too close, am I too far away? And to do that, you go right up here. With those stitches on it, I can zoom in and I can start making adjustments so that it looks really the way I want it. So let's click on it, and I'm going to start moving some of those points over, just kind of refining what this looks like. So in this part of the video, I'm just looking at each area of the design and dragging the points to where I think they look good. I even changed one point from a cusp to a curve because I thought it flowed better that way. After I adjust the points around the word hope, then I go back to my straight points on the H and move them to the exact location I want them. It's so much easier to get them exactly where you want them when you zoom in rather closely. This part adds a few minutes to making the design, but to me, it's something that I do so that the final result is really the way I want it. Now that I have the design the way I like it, the next thing would be to make this into an applique. So right now, all I have is a satin border. Let's go ahead and change that satin border to just a run stitch. And for my run stitches to do the placement stitch to show me where I need to put my fabric down, I like to bump this up just a little bit. You don't need such a tight stitch. Now we're going to select that. We're going to hit Command C for copy, Command V for paste. You can also copy and paste up here, or you can go to Edit, Copy and Paste. And I had an extra thing in there. Let me delete that. Okay, so this would be my tack down stitch. This is where I sew down my fabric. For this one, I'm going to bump this down to 2.5. And some people like to do a double stitch here. For me, I think a single stitch is going to work for what I want because I'm just going to use fabric on this. I don't need a really super thick and heavy duty stitch, such as when you're using HTV in the middle of an applique. Let's do Command C for copy, Command V for paste. Now this is going to be our satin border stitch. So let's select it and go right up here to the satin border. Now with this, I want a width of 4.0 if I can fit it in there. There we go. I think that looks fine. And then let's go back to that and let's look and see. Let's make sure that we tie in and tie off. So now let's go back. Let's use the stitch simulator and let's see how this would stitch out. So first we have that BX font. Then we have our placement stitch. Then we have our position or tack down stitch. And then we finally have that satin border stitch. The last thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and change the color of this run stitch, our tack down stitch, so that I know the machine's going to stop. With these all being the same color, unless you have your machine set to stop, it might not stop. But if I change it a different color, it's going to stop. So let's just go to threads, and you can pick any color. What matters is the color that you put on your machine. Now if you look over here, you can see the order this would stitch out. I want the word hope to stitch out last. So I'm going to select it, and then I'll go up to Edit and down to Sequence Items. From there, I'll select Move Last. Also, I forgot to show you how to save this design during the video. So I'm going back to show that now. You go to File, then I save my designs as working files as well as stitch files, and my machines use the DST extension. Then you would give it a name and click Save. Since I had already saved this design, I'll just replace it here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope the video's been helpful. If you have Embrilliance Stitch Artist Level 1, this is how you can create those really adorable knockout designs.